Hey everyone, you're watching Prime Talks. Here we go. Hey, thanks for joining us. It's Friday, June 10th, 2022. It's been a while since we did Prime Talks, so I'm privileged to have Bu join us from Yunt Capital and the Echelon Foundation today. We're going to talk about Pack Drop 4, which happens tomorrow, June 11th at 5 p.m. Eastern. So we're all really excited for that. But then I'm just excited as well to talk about more of the progress at Parallel Studios, at the Echelon Foundation, and kind of get Bu's viewpoint on all the progress towards actually getting the game Parallel out to the public, which is currently in private testing. So Bu, thanks for joining me, man. How are you doing?
Doing all right. Yeah, thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're one of the many Yunts at Yunt Capital that really can talk us through every last detail here. Well, the first part of our conversation is really easy because we're just super excited that a new pack drop is here. I truthfully lost track of time and then noticed that it was coming within a few weeks. And a new pack drop means new art, means new card functions. There's just a lot there to sort of celebrate in the storytelling of this new sci-fi franchise. So I guess before we do talk more about what you need to know to participate in Pack Drop 4, in case anyone is new to Parallel and to knowing you, Bu, do you want to share a little bit about your background at Yunt and what is the Echelon Foundation?
Yeah, sure. So I guess a bit about Yunt Capital. We're kind of like an early stage venture capital firm, and we don't take outside money. It's all our own, and we look to just invest in teams and projects that we really believe in and that we think are trying to move the whole adoption of crypto and Web3 forward in a really meaningful and kind of ethical way. And so Parallel was something we were super excited about from day one, and we're lucky enough to be investors with this great team. And sort of part of that as well has been joining, being elected to the Echelon Prime Foundation as one of the emissaries, and spending a lot of time really thinking through creating an ecosystem for gaming of not just the Parallel TCG card game, but hopefully other games and tools, and building a really robust ecosystem driven by the Prime token, where we can kind of usher in the next wave of adoption of crypto and Web3 games from hopefully people for whom this will be their first experience as well. We love when crypto natives are excited in what we're doing, but we're also trying to build with a vision towards millions of people, not just tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands. So hopefully getting a lot of folks who aren't here yet excited about crypto, and especially excited about games that run on the Prime ecosystem like Parallel TCG will.
Yeah. So in regards to PD4, if I want to participate in that and get a pack, it's first come, first serve. It happens tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern, which I probably should pull up one of the slides there from Parallel. But what do I need to do to prepare if I've already participated in a pack drop previously versus if I'm totally new to Parallel?
Yeah, so if you're totally new to Parallel, what you're going to want to do is create an account first and foremost on parallel.life. This will be your sort of gateway to interacting with Parallel and being able to purchase packs in the future, as well as participate in things like we just had, which was the Mercenary Gunslinger faucet. So once per pack drop, Parallel has done this really cool thing where they basically allow people to get a free card, which is pretty sweet. But yeah, so with that account, you'll also want a crypto wallet, and you'll want to have some Ether in there. I believe the packs are priced at 0.185 or something thereabouts. So you'll want to have at least that much plus a bit for gas. And you'll want to make sure you show up at 5. It will be first come, first serve. I think there's a bit over 10,000 packs that will be available. I believe it's going to be one per customer. And this is sort of after the first half or so was reserved for folks who had qualified for what they called their manifest, which was like an allow list based on certain criteria. And this was a pretty cool, I think a pretty cool thing that they did for the community, and shows that they've listened to a lot of the feedback. And this pack drop will be a bit pricier than the last one, but again, in the spirit of listening to feedback, they've sort of recollated these packs, reduced the allocation, and sort of upped the rarity of the cards that are in the packs. So I think these will be more similar in experience, perhaps to Pack Drop 2, in terms of the types of rarities and pulls that people will be looking for. But yeah, I mean, they keep adjusting the system each time, and I think listening to feedback and trying to continue to improve and get better. And for tomorrow, as long as you have an account, as long as you have a crypto wallet with enough ether in it to participate, you should be good to give it a whirl at 5 p.m. and see if you get lucky.
Yeah, so I'll just put in here, folks can go to parallel.life if they want to create a parallel account. So just the usual, like if you've never checked out parallel.life, that's where you would create like an email password combo there, so that you can access and tie that to your in this case an Ethereum wallet. And so there's already been a few improvements here too to call out. I want to say, I'm not totally confident whether or not like this is true, but I want to say they improved the gas costs of paying, because I noticed the other day with the manifest card drop. So the team was very thoughtful in basically rewarding everyone who had been like longtime collectors, and basically if you had certain cards or had been holding on to cards for X amount of time, there was this retroactive sort of reward of allowing you to reserve a pack in advance. And anyways, when I went to Payview, I noticed it was really cheap gas wise, to a point I actually thought something was wrong, and I kept checking the MetaMask settings, and I was like, did I do something wrong? Am I about to have a failed transaction? So I'm hoping that others will notice that. Gas was actually pretty high when I was trying to pay that, and the fees specifically for paying for my parallel PD4 pack were pretty cheap. And then, as you pointed out, there's a lot of packs here. My guess is that they're going to sell out very quickly. But if you're lucky enough, if you do get through one reservation, there's that 1 minute cooldown, and there is a chance that you could get multiple packs then. But again, I would set expectations that just getting one pack is, per usual, a pretty huge success.
Yeah, absolutely. And ultimately they're largely assets for a game. So you're gonna want the NFTs for the game, I think.
Yeah, and I'll link this in one of the tweet threads connected to this interview, but there's a nice chart here if you want to dig through like the rarity of the different cards. But let's actually show off some of the cards and talk through like what are some of your favorites so far, and then if you're able to share what you know about some of the different card functions and how that'll play into the game. I think that'll be a little more exciting for all of us that, again, are looking forward to actually playing the game. So I will reshare a different tab here. Is there, is there any specific card you want to start on? I know there were quite a few there we had in chat.
I think actually I mentioned the faucet card, Mercenary Gunslinger. I think that's the second link that I sent you. Yeah, we can start with that.
Let's do that.
Yeah, so I guess like I'll say there's been a smallish group of folks testing the game in a gray box setting, and that's recently been expanded. I think they mentioned that pretty publicly to the mods in the parallel channel, and now we got a fairly cool group of and I think like a decently large group of folks that are doing initial playtesting. And I know over time this group will continue to be expanded out. One of the things that was super interesting was when the group was expanded to include the parallel mods, the metagame changed, and yeah, more feedback will come in, but at the same time, the team is working to finish up getting everything ready for the actual client and the game to launch. And so, expansion of the playtesting team is, I think, going to probably follow the same sort of path that they've been on, where it's going to be methodical and make sure that they're ready to onboard more people and absorb that feedback. But yeah, so this is the card from the faucet, Mercenary Gunslinger. It is a 1 energy 1/1 universal unit, and when it has the keyword muster, which if you are familiar with card games like Magic the Gathering, which is a game that I've played for 20 years, muster is like it enters the battlefield trigger. So when this unit enters the board, it can deal 1 damage to any target. So 1 energy, 1/1 unit universal enters the when you muster it, it can ping something. Pretty strong card, especially at common. And this is something I'll talk about probably a little bit later, which is in playtesting, a lot of the universal commons have been very strong, and this is definitely one of them. Like this is a card that I've come up a lot in testing, and I think sees a lot of play. And it's also like this, and we'll talk about Inspired Teacher later as well. That was I think another faucet card from, God, was that PD3? I think that was the
Yeah.
PD3 faucet.
Yeah.
Yeah, Paradigm
I
Shift
know
was PD.
it feels
Was
forever
PD3.
ago, but I believe that was PD3. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That feels like a lifetime ago.
Yeah, so the last 2 cards that were in the faucet, so free for anybody, have so far shaped up to kind of be format staples in early testing. So it's like that's kind of cool as well. That if you were somebody brand new to TCGs or brand new to Parallel, and you just hit the last 2 faucets, when the game comes out, you have 2 NFTs that are probably going to be pretty good cards and decks you're going to want to play. So that's like, I think, something really cool to think about as well, which is folks didn't just get a card with great art, they got that too, but they're getting a card that has a really high probability of being an important card in the metagame. So like that's sweet. I like that a lot. But yeah, I think we can take a look sort of at the
Yeah. Did
yeah,
you
go
want to
ahead.
share? I've got another card teed up here, which is
Oh
just
yeah.
so cool looking. Sacred
Yeah, let's do it.
Destruction. Let
Oh
me
yeah.
show this one.
I picked this one because it is maybe my favorite art in this pack drop. I don't know. It's like always so hard to pick because there's so many contenders,
Dude,
but
it's just so cool.
there's something about it. I mean, how good is
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, like look at like first off, when you look at this, you're like immediately, of course, drawn to the, this person at the center, but then you have to look closely here. Look at what's going on in the background. Like
Oh yeah.
it's just so cool. Like,
The glow of the cape is really something. Just the colors of this. I don't
yeah,
know if they're like chunks of rock hitting down or what exactly is hitting these ships, but it's like, I don't know, there's just something about this card art wise that feels really epic.
yes.
Um,
I want a t-shirt of this. Like I want this
yeah.
on a t-shirt, and then I'll have some NFT hater say, "Oh, your cards aren't worth anything now because I have it on a t-shirt." I'm like,
Oh,
"Yep, go buy a t-shirt with the Mona Lisa, then tell me you own the Mona Lisa." This
oh
is
yeah.
so cool though. By the way, if anyone's, newer to Parallel, like we're showing the masterpieces, which are 1 of 1s, but the cards normally come in there's like a first edition, which basically they could come in, depends on how rare or not rare the card is, and then there's normally a special edition. So these masterpieces are great because it eliminates a part of the bordering in the card design, so you can really just focus on like the beauty of the artwork.
Yeah. I mean, this looks like a movie poster, doesn't it? You know, like
It
this
does.
would be one of the posters that you would show for, you know, some kind of a teaser poster.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is just one of many examples of the fact that the team has not let off the gas. The
Oh yeah.
markets have changed since we last talked. I mean, really, like crypto winter has definitely hit. We're in a major sort of downtrend right now in crypto and like global markets as well. And as expected, this team just continues to work on creating like the world's next greatest card game. And I mean, what's expansive beyond that is that this is a sci-fi franchise, and that the team
Yeah.
has continued to tell us this like epic story through these cards, which I think we all hope and speculate will eventually turn into some sort of series or potentially even movies, because the cards are just so cool. I like, dude,
Oh
this
yeah.
is, yeah, this is my favorite too in PD4. Just, you can go to OpenSea, and all the cards have been minted, so you can actually look through them before they're released. But yeah,
Yeah.
this is a great pick.
Oh yeah. And it's quite a card as well. So this one, yeah, we can spoil um the game text for this one as well. So yeah, Sacred Destruction. It is a shroud card. It is a common, and it is the type effect. So yeah, I guess again, drawing it back to maybe for folks who maybe aren't familiar with the parallel lingo yet, but maybe have played other card games, this would be like a spell or a magic, like an instant or a sorcery. So it's not a permanent card, but it is sort of like a spell or an effect that you would play. And this comes in at 6 energy, so it's not cheap. But what do you get for that 6 energy? So you get to destroy a target unit. Okay, that's pretty good, but pretty expensive for that effect. However, if this is the third time that you've played Sacred Destruction this game, you get to create you get to create a unit, which is Bella, Wielder of Unmaking. And so before I get into Bella, let's just like sort of unpack that a bit. So in parallel, you can have up to 3 copies of most cards in your deck. And so that's where this, if you've played this third time, comes from. So, let's say that you're building a Shroud deck and you put Sacred Destruction, you put 3 copies in. If you play this card 3 times, either you draw all 3 or you're able to get 1 copy that you've played back into your hand somehow, and you cast it for a third time, then you get to create this unit, Bella. So Bella is a 9/9 unit that cannot be targeted by enemy effects. And when Bella attacks, it destroys a target unit. So pretty powerful. That said, there is a high setup cost and ultimately a high energy cost. Like, in order to get Bella, you're basically paying 18 energy across, 3 different instances of casting this card. But from a design standpoint, I really like this because, okay, you get a card that has an effect that most decks are going to want. Like a lot of decks, removal in most card games is your bread and butter. You want to have at least some ways to remove a potentially troublesome unit from the opponent's side of the battlefield. And maybe you're paying a little bit over for this effect at 6 energy, but if you get to cast it 3 times, you're sort of rebated that cost a bit by getting this sort of like a massive creature that has, some amount of evasion and a pretty relevant sort of ability. Like when it attacks, it can just pop something off on the other side. So I like this a lot because it creates tension and it creates a lot of choice. It's, especially like, with other certain mechanics within parallel, like the way that the banking system works for energy, where you take a card from your hand and you put it into your bank to get energy. It's like you have all these instances where I can either make a couple different choices and try to take a couple different lines and see how it plays out. And I think that this card, has a lot of play to it, and I like the balance to it a lot.
Yeah, just like it's I am I was trying to tee up this next card, and I'm just struck by like there's so many new cards in this pack drop that are potentially like my new favorites, and I think
Oh yeah.
I like this is going to be the best pack drop yet. Like I have a respect and sort of like a reverence for the first few pack drops just because they were the first. But I think now I'm recognizing that like the artwork seems like it's becoming like it's gotten even that much better with all
I
the
know.
because they've onboarded a bunch of
It's
new artists as
crazy.
well. So
It's
it's like
somehow, how do they keep getting away with it?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's
That's
it's
what like
insane.
so I've never heard on Life in Parallel. I was wondering if anyone's talked about like the process that goes into creating the card. Like there's Chris, I can never pronounce his last name, Chris Bizger, something like that, and Oscar. Like I think they've talked about like inspirations for some of these, but
Yeah.
like is there like storyboarding going on like behind the scenes, or are these guys just like geniuses sitting in a hole pumping out like one remarkable piece after another? Do you
I
know
don't
anything about
know.
what goes into that process?
I don't. I have been lucky enough to meet Oscar, and he is a genius. I can confirm. He also had the coolest ever like varsity jacket, and I'm super jealous, and I really want it, but I'm not even remotely cool enough to pull it off like Oscar is.
So cool. Anyway, sorry to detract from the functions there. I just
Oh yeah,
like
no
I was
worries.
like, man, like which card should we show next? Is there a specific card you'd like me to screen share next? Like I had not being aware of like what card function this might represent, but there's one called Dark Dealings that looks really cool. There's another one called The Void that kind of looks like a black hole. But
Yeah,
yeah, any
so
specific card you'd
I
like me to
think the
share?
next one is like the third link I sent you. And this has probably been my favorite card to play. This is like this is a 3 of auto
Oh
include
yeah,
in
this is a
every
cool
deck
one.
that I've been playing. Um,
Here we
and this will
go.
also help me segue into talking about universal cards and everything. Yeah, so this is Ranksy. This card is fantastic. So this is Ranksy Master Imposter. It is a universal card. It is legendary, and it is a unit that has 1 health and 1 attack. So it's a 1/1 unit, legendary, universal for 3 energy. Okay, so feels kind of expensive for just the like vanilla test. You're overpaying. So what does it do? Okay, so Ranksy, when it enters the battlefield, this unit becomes a copy of another unit. This copy gains, when this unit is destroyed, muster a 1/1 Ranksy cover blown that has the ability at the end of your turn, this unit becomes a copy of another target unit. So, okay, there's a lot going on here, but again, folks who are familiar with some TCGs will probably immediately trigger, oh, this is a clone. Great. Clones are usually pretty powerful because they allow you to get especially in games where as a deck building constraint you're allowed to only have 3 copies of something. So Ranksy allows you to get additional copies of some card. It's super powerful just because of the flexibility. You might have 3 different cards that do 3 different things on your side of the battlefield, and depending upon the board state, you might want to copy one over the other. The other thing that is really sweet about Ranksy is that whole second clause where when it's killed, you get another 1/1 that at the end of your turn allows you to copy again. And what's cool about this is it allows you to potentially use the copied creature, the first copy, to take out another creature. So let's say I make a copy and I want to attack a creature on the other side of the board or a unit on the other side of the board and kill it, but my clone is going to die first. No problem. I was able to basically cast this, use it as a removal spell, and then I'm going to get another copy, which at the end of my turn, I'll get to like turn into another target unit. So that's like one aspect of it. But then sort of like on the flip side, as the opponent, if you're able to use a removal spell to kill the first clone, then just a 1/1 that isn't going to do anything until the end of their next turn. And so it's actually pretty easy for you to kill it. Like if we remember the first card we showed, Mercenary Gunslinger, that's a 1 mana 1/1 or 1 energy 1/1 that you can just ping something off with. So if you can remove the first clone, you could play something cheap and efficient like Mercenary Gunslinger and just ping off the 1/1 that Ranksy leaves behind. You could throw any number of your other units at it to just attack it and clear it. So it's potentially really powerful, but it's not so powerful that when an opponent plays it, you're like, oh crap, like the game's just over. So it's like that's another, again, like from a design standpoint, I really like that, where it's fun to play powerful cards that have powerful effects, but it's not fun if doing so just ends the game, because you want to continue to have that tension, and it's just a bad experience as well. I think for both the winner and the loser, I don't have fun playing games where I just play a card and I win. I like playing games where there's a lot of play to it, and the decisions that I made and that my opponent made throughout the game actually end up mattering. And so I think the thing that I love about the cards that we've shown here is there is a lot of balance to them. Now, I think in the case of Ranksy and Mercenary Gunslinger and even like Inspired Teacher and some of these other universal cards, there is maybe some tuning to do. And that's where we can maybe talk a little bit about the playtesting, where, let's also preface this by saying all these card functions that we've talked about are all subject to change, because right now we're just testing the cards out. We're seeing what works, what doesn't. Is one faction too strong? Is one too weak? How can we get to a more balanced metagame? And I think universal cards have been adjusted recently to potentially try to balance the metagame a bit more. But I do think these are like really strong cards, especially when you consider that being universal, there's not really a deck building restriction, right? Like if you make a really powerful Markolian card or a really powerful Shroud card, then you have to be Markolian or you have to be Shroud to play those. Whereas if you make a really powerful universal card, anybody can play those. So I think, from a design standpoint and a balancing the metagame standpoint, the universal cards will definitely be the ones that play testers in the team will probably have to be the most cautious with, because again, there's sort of no cost to just tossing 3 copies of ranks in your deck. And I think the card's good enough that you probably should, unless you have a very specific reason not to. It's definitely one of those cards where you're like, yeah, that's an auto include 3 of. It's also just so much fun to play. like this is when I have this in my opening hand, I'm just like, oh yes, baby, here we go.
B, what has been some of the early feedback in testing?
Yeah, I think the feedback has been, how do we find more balance between the aggressive decks, which have tended to be quite strong, and more of the mid-range and control decks. And we're getting closer to that. I think early playtesting, Markolian was very, very good. And you had decks like Shroud that were weaker, because Shroud, like the playstyle of Shroud, right? It's a slower deck. It's more control focused. You can build mid-range versions of it, but it's not necessarily fast out of the gate. Whereas the adjustments that have been made in the latest patches have been, I think it's it's balanced it better. I think the aggressive decks are still really good, but the mid-range and control decks now have a bit more of a fighting chance, and that's because some of the cards have just been made a bit more efficient. You know, and like, yeah, you know, that lets me repeat what I said, where it's like, you know, the costs and the functions here are subject to change because we are testing things out and seeing like, hey, is this too cheap? Is this too expensive? What happens if we tweak this? Does it materially change things? But I think, yeah, the latest adjustments have definitely created a better balance. I've been playing a Shroud mid-range deck, which is exactly the playstyle that I prefer to play in a lot of the card games that I play, and that's been a lot of fun. Whereas I think before the last couple patches, that deck would have been pretty difficult to play, and before that I was playing mostly Markolian and Cathari. I'm yet to play Augencore, and I'm yet to play Earthen. I think that's just because my playstyle is much more. My perfect playstyle is what Shroud plays. In Magic, you know, a game that I've played for a long time, these sort of grindy mid-range to control decks that are just chock full of 2-for-1 value cards are like that's how I like to grind them out. Yeah, but you know, I'll also play. I'll play what's best. Ultimately, I'm a filthy net decker. I'm somebody who plays to win. I don't brew, but there's been quite a few brewers as well. I think Meta Regular was trying out a unitless deck, and then I played against a deck yesterday that I think was only universal cards. So it's like, yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff going on, and we're just trying to like try a bunch of stuff, play the cards. Like, how does this feel? Like, does this card feel good? Does it feel balanced the first time I play it? How about the like 20th time I've played it? Because that's another thing, you know, playing a game like Magic for so long is a new format comes out. How I feel about a card 1 game in versus 10 games in versus 25 games in changes. And so, yeah, we also just have to get the reps in, be like, I think this card might be too good. Is it actually too good, or do I just need to play with it more and see it in the meta? You know, I think, you know, Mercenary Gunslinger, and then, you know, we've also mentioned Inspired Teacher as well. Like, those are cards that I think are just super efficient, and it's like, I don't know if they're too good actually. Like, at commons, they're quite good. But we need to keep playing with them, and I think it's like it's good to have strong cards like that, but yeah, finding the balance is something that's still ongoing. But so far, I'm very impressed with the game, and I've approached this fairly critically because I am somebody who loves TCGs, has played a lot of different TCGs. I think Magic is the greatest game ever made, and like no one's going to probably make a better game than that. Like, at least in the abstract sense of games and what they are. It's just it's so rich, it's so deep, it's so complex. But I don't think Parallel's trying to create a game that's better than Magic. I think they're just trying to create a really, really good TCG that sort of threads the needle in terms of like, if complexity is on a spectrum, Magic is extremely complex and it's at one end. And then I think a game like Hearthstone is a game I don't actually enjoy playing at all because I think it lacks complexity. I think it's super on rails and it's kind of boring. I'm not making as many decisions, and I feel like my decisions don't matter. Whereas I think Parallel has done a really good job being a middle ground where there's a lot of complexity. Well, let me rephrase that. There's enough complexity. There's a lot of choices that players get to make, which is good. In my view, like that's sort of the hallmark of a good game is making players make choices and then having those choices matter. And they've done a really good job of that, but they've also done a great job of not being so complex like Magic is that it's difficult to learn. There's so many people who have joined, you know, who are now in this testing pool for whom this is the first card game they've ever played. They didn't play Magic, they haven't played any of these things, and they've been able to pick it up. And that to me is I love that because I have friends who have learned Magic or tried to learn Magic, and like it's really hard. You have to really, really commit to learning it, and it's going to take a long time. And it's great to see that Parallel has created a game that still has depth and richness to the decision making, but isn't so difficult and so intimidating that people aren't going to pick it up and try it.
Yeah, I think that's going to be an advantage to the game. I've heard this obviously from you and quite a few others that have had a chance to play the private beta, whatever you want to call it. That if there's a spectrum of complexity, this sits somewhere in between Hearthstone and Magic. And again, I think that's like if you've for someone like you that will say mastered Magic, it can be a real joy, but I think people's attention spans are limited, and I think that one of the goals here is, first goal is to create the world's greatest trading card game, but then second to that, and probably equally on par, like long term, is creating the world's greatest sci-fi franchise. And so there's a lot to gain by onboarding that many folks in the early days, into the TCG. But then there will be more folks then who will discover it probably in the future just from the storytelling alone. Hey, one thing, Bu, I want to leave just a few minutes for a few questions related to Echelon. And actually, there was someone, Bran, had a question here. I'll just share it. He said, so a majority of Prime is allocated to the current Parallel community. How are new games not developed by Parallel game studios incentivized to adopt Prime instead of launching their own token? How do you think about that?
So I would say Echelon still has a fairly large chunk of Prime that we can use to kind of like incentivize development of new games or new tools within the ecosystem. So we still have a fairly large chunk. The other thing is, we're still modeling everything, and we haven't shared details on what the exact splits and allocations are going to be. And we will once we get closer to the game and the modeling is more complete. But we've mentioned these ideas of sinks, right? So creating essentially logical places within the ecosystems and within the games where players can use their Prime to do something. So, for example, the lineage system, that's one sink. They've spoken about, okay, I have a deck full of NFTs. I'm playing these games. I'm earning Prime while I'm playing these games, and I'm also earning this thing called Renown. Okay, Renown is it's basically like XP for this card. And once I sort of like fill up that Renown bar, I can then spend Prime to generate another version of that card, right? So that's a sink where we've created in the game. There will be an opportunity to spend Prime to essentially like create another copy of your NFT. And when you spend some of that Prime, some of it's going to go back to the play, to the pool for Prime distribution for the game. Some of it's going to go back to the Echelon treasury as well. And so if we can create this economy and make sure that it functions well enough, as the games continue to succeed and scale, we will continue to refill the Echelon treasury, and that will allow us to have more Prime, down the line to continue to onboard new games. And one of the things that we'll evaluate when onboarding new games is what are their sinks like their ability to leverage Prime and participate in our ecosystem also will need to meet a fairly high standard when it comes to having a sustainable circular economy. So it's not something where we're just handing Prime out to a new game and they're like, oh, whoops, we blew through it all. Can we have some more? It's like, no, you need to make sure that, you guys have thought about, how do we have sinks in our game? How do we make sure that we can adjust parameters to make sure that the game sort of self-sustains its pool of Prime?
I think that covers it there. Then now, what else is worth updating from Echelon? And anything else that's top of mind? And we're not talking about. Bran was joking here. He said, "Oops." He said win prime, that which I thought was funny. That's the question on everyone's mind. But we know that hopefully that's coming here sometime in 2022. But beyond that, what else is interesting lately? Anything that you can share, or should we like look to an update soon?
Yeah, I would say that both Parallel and Echelon will be at NFT NYC, which is God, it's very soon. um, it's the week after next, and there is an event on the 20th that is part of NFTC SEA that is down at the Seaport in Manhattan. And yeah, there will be an event there. We will be sharing some more information about the game. Parallel will be there. They'll be talking a lot more about the game and the development, as well as some of the art and sort of what's going on with them. And Echelon will also be giving a bit more of an update about the Prime ecosystem and how we're thinking about that. So I would say stay tuned for that. We're trying to see the best way to potentially make this available to folks who aren't going to be at NFT NYC, but no promises on that yet. After that, we will be looking to sort of catch up with the community at some point and have a broader discussion about all the information that's been released, as well as kind of anything that comes out of NFT NYC.
Okay, Bu, anything else then worth discussing here? I think what we'll look to June 20th then, which I think Cold Plunge, who's another member of Echelon, had mentioned was a date that everyone should look forward to. If you're at NFT NYC, is that an open event, or is that should they try to get in touch with anyone to try to participate?
So there's a closed event later in the evening, but NFT NYC or NFTC, I think there's a big chunk of that day that is going to be kind of more open to the public. And I know a lot of the folks from Echelon and Parallel, we are going to get there early and try to stake out a corner of the bar so that folks can, come by, say hello, chat, meet the team. And I think we're going to have some swag as well to give out there. So if you're here, stop by. Let me just find it real quick, and then you can share out
oh, that'd be great.
Where to meet people.
That's June 20th. And what time was that about?
I think it starts at about 1 p.m. And here, let me just post that there. So this is the Twitter account for NFTC, and I think that they have been providing a bit more information about what's going to be. And it's not going to be just Parallel there. There's going to be a bunch of other projects kind of like there as well, giving presentations in the studio, as well as the gathering before all this, where we're sort of just hanging out, meeting folks, and having a good time, starting off the kicking off the conference, hopefully with a bang.
Very cool. Yeah, I'm going to try to be there on that Monday. So yeah, if anyone else wants to meet up there at the, hopefully to meet up with Bu and others from Echelon and the Parallel team, it sounds like a lot of fun there. So that's NFT NYC with an SEA at the end. So cool. We'll check that out. And Bu, I guess other than that, just one last reminder to everyone that Pack Drop 4 again is tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern, which is Saturday, June 11th. They can go to parallel.life. Actually, where did my link go here? Did I lose my link? I guess not. You can go to parallel.life to register an account if you've never participated in a pack drop, or just if you're interested in learning more about Parallel. And other than that, I guess I'll look forward to hopefully trying to catch you and everyone else there on June 20th.
Awesome.
Well, Bu, thanks for your time, man. So good to catch up, and appreciate you walking us through all the details of the private beta as well, and some of these like early card functions. And I'd encourage anyone, like if you're interested in playing that private beta, or if you're interested in just getting involved in Parallel, giving feedback on all that's in development, the best way to do that is go to parallel.life and join the Discord. You don't need to buy any cards in advance. There's the community is a very open and I think very transparent with all the progress going on. And like I pointed out earlier, that the team is just very focused right now. And it's been a real joy to be a part of the community and watch this game coming to life in front of us. So anyways, thanks again, Bu, for your time. And if you all enjoyed this, please subscribe at DeFiDad.com, and we'll continue to do Prime Talks episodes here.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for having me. This was great.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend. We'll see you then.